Live from Michigan City, Indiana, it's Long Arm TV Live with Jamie Wallen.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Quilters Apothecary. Today our live tutorial is going to be on a few options for quilting out different type of panel type fabric. So in other words, you know the fabric you get. It's either the flower fairies that people get sometimes, or right now what's real popular are the animals that we're going to be showing you right now. And then it's always a little bit difficult to figure out for a lot of our new quilters, how am I going to quilt this? What are some of the options that I have? One of the things that I like to do is simply take the panel and treat it just like you would a photo. So you want to make sure that it's stable, and we're going to go over a little bit of how I like to do that, but that's kind of where we're going to start. So let me see. Let me first, Mr. Ritchie, if you want to take him down this camera right here. Okay, so let's look at this one. Now I've already quilted this. Now this whole quilt is made up of, real quick overview here, and this is the one we did that really cool border on a few weeks back that I gotta get finished here. But it's made up of different sections of the wildlife panels, the foxes, the bears, all different things like that. And then what they've done is they've cut different panels apart to piece in between there to make into these really cool designs within the quilt body itself. So on this section right here, what I'm doing is something very similar to what we're going to be doing today. This is just a long tree from that panel, and instead of trying to go around and quilt that whole tree, what I did is I kind of treated it like a frame, and I simply went in an inch, went in another inch, went in another inch, and I chose not to do it as a rectangle complete. What I did is I kept this flat and came over, back, down, followed that ditch, up, over, back, followed up, over, back. That way it keeps the integrity of the tree intact, but gives that really nice texture. And then what we're going to do after we do a few of these blocks is I'm going to show you how I treated the squares that they've pieced in here, and some of them are different sizes, and I've just simply used the grid work technique. That way it's a nice frame for the body of the quilt, and then like I said, the panel parts, which in my opinion, it's like looking at a wall that has a photo album. You know how people will have family photos up on a wall, and then that way we're just going to go right around here and take care of that. So on this particular one, let me show you, for example, this. And we're going to go right here. We're going to tighten up just a little bit. And what I did with this particular block that's pieced into here is I went in an inch and did an inner frame, and then I went in about an inch and a half. But on this particular one, what I wanted to do is to keep the eagle's head in the center. So this side it might be an inch and 3/4, whereas this side it might be an inch and a half. So again, they don't have to be even square and a square and a square and a square. They can be a little bit offset so that way you're bringing focus to the focus part of that particular block. So let me give you another example over here on the other end. So here, where we have the fox, and I realize that you're looking at it upside down, but what I did is, since the fox is offset this way, what I've done is I went in an inch, and again, I didn't go in an inch over here all the way up. What I did is I used the edge of that inner border as kind of a ditch. So I went in an inch, almost like a horseshoe, and then in an inch again, in an inch again, in an inch again, and then I started kind of fudging because I didn't want to put thread through the eyes of the fox. So I kind of have a little bit of the valley right through the fox's eye. That way, again, it's a nice frame. It's not going to take away from the fox, because one of the things that I see people do a lot is they'll take a block like this or a panel like this, and they'll want to go in and do feather, or I'm sorry, fur work around the fox itself. And there are times that that works lovely and it's appropriate, but a lot of times what I feel is that it can make it look cheap, especially if you are not right on where you need to be. And there's no stabilizer. It doesn't keep it stable. So what I like to do instead is to do kind of this frame technique around here. So now we have that. Let me go ahead. I'm going to grab my ditcher. Today we are quilting on the Innova because this quilt is loaded on the Innova today. And I'm going to go ahead. Going to lock my stitches. And I've got my start speed mode set to high. It's at 500. I am going to take that down to 100 because I don't want it to come to a complete stop on the stitch regulator when I turn the corner. That way it's going to give me a nice crisp corner there. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to use my ditch ruler. I'm going to come down. Now I have invisible thread in, or I could have used a nice matching thread. And notice that what I've done is I did pre-mark part of this with the blue marks be gone, and then the part in the fox, I didn't want to go through any of the fox color with the blue marks be gone because I'm going to be using the blue line eraser to get rid of it, and I don't want any color run in case this panel, the colors are not locked well. So I use the chalk to go through the colored portions. Okay, so now come down, come to the point, stop, turn my ruler, line it up, come over here. I'm going to stay right on that blue line. Come right up there. I'm going to follow that up. And I am using my isocore thread in the bobbin. I am matching the backing color is similar to this, so I'm using that in the bobbin, and I'm using my Superior Monopoly Invisible thread in the bobbin. I'm actually in the midst of trying some other invisible threads, but that tends to be my go-to. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come down, stop, line it up, come down, stop, turn. And by the way, for the Superior Monopoly, I am using the smoke color. I am not using the clear because I don't want there to be a shine. And because there's color in this particular block, if I were using the invisible, the clear, then you might get some shine in some of the areas. And I find the smoke color, it just blends in wonderful. The only time and I know you've heard me say this a ton, but the only time I really use the clear is if I'm working in a quilt that's pure white. Okay, so now I'm going to come down here and I'm going to repeat this all the way in. So here in Michigan City, our weather is fairly cool today, as you can tell from my cap that I have on. Most of you know Mr. Ritchie does not allow me to have the heat on, so you know how that goes. So we're coming down, and actually I don't really need the heat, but I am getting older. I'm a little surprised how much more I tend to get a little bit chilly. Come in, I'm going to come up. Follow that through, right up to the point. Come in, go around. And what this is going to do is give that a beautiful frame. Line that up. Now also I make sure to check back here to make sure my ditch ruler is a 1/4 inch away from the chalk itself. Line that up. I see you over there messing with lights, Mr. Ritchie. Must have had some dark spot. Sorry about that, folks. More light. More light for Mary. All right, now we're going to come down. Going to go in there. He's a good egg, isn't he? Whatever you ask for, he takes care of. At least you ladies. Now I'm going to come and I'm going to bring this all the way up. And now I'm going to simply follow that ditch because I'm no longer doing a rectangle. What I'm doing is I'm going opposite the eyes. Come down. This. Okay, so now I'm there at the end. I'm going to take and lock my stitches a little bit. Give myself about 6 stitches forward, 5 stitches backwards in the space of 2 normal stitches. Lift up my needle, give myself some slack, move away, pop up my bobbin thread. Da, 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 da. And snippers, snippers. Okay, so now we've got that. Let me snip this tail. Let me throw that away. And now before we go over to the other block, what I'm going to do, wipe away my chalk. Love this thing. Got it at Joann's years and years ago. It also helps get lint. Or if you have a cat in your studio, we do not, but I have a friend that loves this because she has her cat in her quilt studio. She only does her own quilts, but it helps take any of the cat hair off. Okay, so now where is my blue line eraser? I'm going to just go right over that blue line before I go to the next spot, and then it's going to be dry. And see, it doesn't take a lot, and it doesn't take that long to do. And then if you do this as you go through the whole quilt, you don't have to do this when you remove the quilt from the frame. Da, 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 da. So I hope everybody's doing good out there. I planted tomatoes today and a little bit of basil because I want fresh pesto. I'm actually going to try some vegan pesto using cannellini beans, the white beans, rather than cheese and stuff. So I keep trying to get rich. We're having a struggle because we have, what's the tree, Rich? It's a sycamore in our backyard, and it's dangerous. And it's about 180 years old, and it's like we are not people that like to get rid of trees, but this one, only half of it is leafing. And so we're kind of like, boy, this will take out 3 houses near us if anything goes wrong with this. Plus, I'm thinking if we do the right thing and we take it down, but we have to wait for the neighborhood association to okay it, the historic review board to okay it. I want to do a whole garden in the backyard. Boy, I miss that. I miss planting some peppers and cucumbers and all sorts of stuff to fill up the winter pantry. And tomatoes. I love doing all the different kinds of tomatoes. Yeah, and when the tree does come into leaf, we never have sun or rain. So I mean, it's just kind of a dead zone. But I love the tree. I've loved it for since I've been there. But boy, it's just not looking good. And it's huge. It's the hugest tree within about 6 blocks of our house. Okay, so now we've gotten rid of all that blue line. Again with the blue line eraser, because I know you're always asking, what am I using? Okay, so that's done. So now I'm going to hop over here, and we're going to do some close-up of some of that texture when we're done here shortly. But now I'm going to come over to this guy, and I'm going to lock my stitches. After, I want to change my thread because with this particular block, as well as this one up here, I'm going to use regular thread rather than invisible, just to kind of blend in a little bit more and add a little bit more stability. So I'm going to pop over here. I'm going to change, and I'm going the wrong way around. I got the look from Mr. Ritchie. Sorry about that, Rich. You get an extra slice of my portion of pizza tonight. All right. Got to tie that on. You know, it took me a long time to get comfortable with this, tying the thread on and pulling it through. I was so cheap, I would rethread the whole machine every single time for years, for like my first 8 of my 20-something years of quilting. And now, a gazillionth of a penny per square inch thread. Yeah, no. I'm going to pull that through. My bobbin thread is still the same. I'm going to leave that green. And someone emailed me the other day and said, hey, do you keep changing your colors of bobbin thread? You know I do, unless the client wants like the same color. And again, then I would be double batting. Now this particular quilt is double batted, but I'm using a nice neutral. I'm only using 2 different bobbin colors. This off green to kind of go with this, kind of sage green, and also black for the black inner border. And gold, because remember that border that we did a few weeks ago on this quilt. I used gold metallic in the border. So, okay, so I am going to lock that corner stitches, make it nice and tight so you can't see. And now I'm going to grab my ditch ruler, and I'm going to use the square one just so you get a better visual, so my other handle's not so much in the way. I'm going to come down, stop, turn, line it up, fuzz, get off of there. All right. Over, stop, pause, line it up. Oops, that could have been horrible. Up, stop, line it up. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen when I'm on camera. Over and down, and I'm going to lock my stitches this way and keep them very small because I don't want an obtrusive lock on, especially on something like this. Now what I'm simply going to do is I'm simply going to drag a little bit. So I'm just going to loosen this a little bit, and then I'm going to lift my needle. I'm going to come right over to this corner. I'm not going to go any further. I'm going to drop my needle in that corner, and now I'm going to go ahead, start again, lock my stitches in that corner. I'll trim that drag when I'm done with this block on top, and then when I remove the quilt from the frame, I'll go ahead and I'll trim all of the drags on the bottom. And I'll typically only drag about 2 to 3 inches, sometimes maybe 4 inches is about the furthest I'll drag. But I don't like to drag any further because then if I have to go over it, the underneath might get caught and then I could end up with some trouble. So I'm going to lock those stitches there in the corner. So now that's going to highlight the center of that bird. Okay, so let me get rid of that. Get rid of that. Release the thread, needle up, pull away, grab my tail, come back, pop my knot up into the quilt, go right down to the fabric. Make sure always, 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 especially for my beginners out there, you know, I love these Karen K. Buckley scissors. These are, and I know that I keep talking about these, and I'm not affiliated anything. It's just I love these, and I tell you, they got this little bit of a scoop right here, but you always want to make sure the scoop is up. Make sure you see her name right here when you do it. Last thing you'd want is to go down here and snip your quilt. So you always want to keep it up, and you'll build a muscle memory for that. Okay, so now we've gotten that all situated. Now, Next thing is I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to go over here. We're going to do this last one, and then I'm going to show you what I'm going to do in the alternative blocks. And I'm going to go into a different corner and start in a different corner, so not all the starts and stops are in the same corner. Start this, go forward, back, lock my stitches, line it up, over, stop, line it up, stop, line it up, over, stop, come down, stop. I'm going to lock those stitches right there. And actually maybe come back a little bit to the dark part of the wing. Lock my stitches in the dark part. That way if you have a OCD mind that can really see those things, they won't be able to see it. I just popped my knot right back up in there. So now it's up in the quilt, so they're not going to have a bump at the bottom. Pull it up, line it up, cut, and I did not drag because I was busy yammering away. What a goober. All right, so now we're going to go over here, line that up, and again, this one's drawn a little bit different. I actually widened here because the eagle is a little bit offset, and so I want the eagle, the main body of the eagle, to be in there. I don't want to cut off the head with my line. So, okay, we're going to line that up. Does this matter? I don't know. It matters to me, like that's how I'd want it on my quilt, so I typically try to, if I like it that way on my quilt, I'm going to do that on a client quilt. Line it up, go up, stop, let it take a few anchor stitches, line it up, stop, let it take a few anchor stitches, come down, line it up, all the way down, lock my stitches. I'm in a dark part of the wing, so I'm safe there. Okay, so now I'm going to do needle up, pull thread down, pull away, grab, pop it up, grab my extra tails, needle down, needle up, pull away again, grab my bobbin thread, make sure that everything's pulled up into the quilt sandwich and popped away. So now I have a lovely frame around these particular guys. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come right over here. I'm going to start right here. Let me get some of my stuff and things out of the way here. By the way, when you get these, I didn't know this. I'm finally figuring that out. But one side is a little rougher and it'll grab a little bit easier. That's the side that I want to grab and get rid of all of the chalk. So if you have a hard time getting rid of the chalk on one side, it's because you got the wrong side. And I didn't know that for a while. Okay, so now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to start here. I've already done these and we're doing just some grid work in these blocks. And what I'm going to do is follow my path because it's kind of like a yellow brick road kind of thing here. You got to follow the path. So I'm going to start here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over, down, up, over, down, in, out, down, in, out. And I'm going to come all the way over here and I'm going to have Rich widen that shot. Going to go up into here, widen it a little more if you could. A little more, a little more, a little more. Perfect. And then I'm going to go into here, which is a big single block, which has a little bit of the foxtail in it. Now, Rich was wondering earlier, hey, how come you don't do grid work to frame this? You could. You could actually do a really cool kind of mystical grid to frame this eagle right here, but I needed to go in a little further to make sure that the eagle itself, these eagles, were stable. So that's why I didn't do that.
I got told to mind my computers and stay away from the quilting.
There you go. Do you believe that? Do you think I'd ever say that to that poor man? That dear, dear man. Stay in his lane. That's what I tell you. Stay in your lane. You can be the tech expert because you should hear him when I try to butt into all that business. All right. So let me see. I'm going to change my start speed to 500. If you have a different machine, it would be called your cruise speed, your coast speed. Um, what else, Rich? Start speed on the Innova. Glide on the APQS is glide. That's right. Okay, so we're going to do 500. No, that's 500. Clumsy fingers. All right, so there we go. I'm going to start here. Bring this down a little bit. Make sure that I'm not in your way so you can kind of see what I'm doing. And Rich, it's kind of going to be up to you to follow me here. So I'm going to start. I'm going to go to my old standby, which is my swirl back, backtrack around the back of the head, over. Don't forget my planner's peanut man there. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go look at our last video on YouTube, which is on the mystical grid work. Over. Now over at the big one, I'm actually going to do a little bit of a different grid work in that block because I want to fill that up. I'm going to go in, and I'm going to travel all the way across this quilt, swirl clockwise. Remember, I'm always swirling clockwise, and I really go into detail with that in this previous video. Was that this Friday's, Rich? Was that the Friday tutorial? A week ago, that's right. In. But it was on Mystical Grids if you want to check it out on YouTube. Around, down. If your backtracking's not perfect, don't sweat it. Make it look like a vine. Stay away from the seam ripper. Swirl, up. You are a human. We want our quilts to have a little bit of a human touch. We're not talking about being lazy or irresponsible with bad quilting. What we are talking about is, remember, we want to have that human touch. We don't want everything looking like a robot did it. Even though I do like the computer stuff, there's a time and place for everything. Swirl clockwise, backtrack up. Go in, swirl clockwise, backtrack up. Come back, clockwise, backtrack in, clockwise, backtrack up, clockwise, backtrack over, clockwise, backtrack down. I'm going to go ahead and get this all at the same shot so I don't have to come back for that. Clockwise, backtrack up. Might as well pick this one up, over, back, clockwise, backtrack up, clockwise, backtrack up, clockwise, backtrack over, come down. Now this next block is going to be the big guy. We might want to switch to the other camera. Ta-da! So we've got this big block right here, and instead of making just one in that block or chalking it off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of a swan into the center just to kind of stabilize that block. So again, I'm going to do my swirl clockwise, backtrack, come up towards the center, backtrack down and over, swirl clockwise, backtrack, come up toward the center, wrap it around that center dot. I put a center dot in that block just so I kind of know what to work around. Now I come down, swirl clockwise, backtrack, swirl counterclockwise, backtrack, over. Now I'm going to come back, swirl clockwise, backtrack, come up, swirl counterclockwise, backtrack, and over. And now I'm going to come back, clockwise, backtrack, over, clockwise, backtrack, over. I'm going to save myself a little time here. Swirl clockwise, down, pick up these two, and notice how I'm not having to cut thread as I travel this path. Over, down, up when you're dealing with a grid, especially squares. I'm not talking diamonds or triangles, but I'm talking any square grids. If you go over, down, up, and then head back to close the row, you'll never have to get caught and then have to restart again. Swirl back, bump the top, new frond, swing back, backtrack, up. Did I just say swirl back, bump the top, new frond? See, I'm feathers, featherhead. Swirl clockwise, backtrack, over and under. Clockwise, backtrack, over and under. You do this way too much when you wake up at night or in the morning saying this stuff, or you remember dreaming about quilting. Up. What a life, though. I miss nursing once in a while, but I gotta tell you, I sure love doing this more than I love being an RN. Though I did love it when I did it. Back, over, over, back. I'm back to start. I'm gonna lock my stitches there. Okay. Going to do my needle up, pull away, loosen my tail, get that in, pull up my bobbin thread, pop my knot, broke my thread that time. Where are you, Karen? All right, there you go. All right, so now we have that section done. So now what I want to do is, Mr. Ritchie, can we do the light thing so we can kind of see some texture? Yeah, let's shut the lights off. Yeah, that might help. Side lighting might be good. We'll see. Now we'll turn it off. Okay. Woo! Yay. Pretty. Okay. So now you can kind of see, you can take that camera out a little bit. And then in a little bit. Suck in my belly. All right. So now you kind of see the texture here. We've got that beautiful grid work in between the frames, especially here. Now, if you can kind of squeeze in on this guy right here. You can see we've got that beautiful frame around the eagles with that wonderful grid work in between. It's just going to give this quilt a lot of beautiful texture. She's going to be hanging this rather than utilizing this. I believe it's a quilt her mother pieced. And you can kind of see, let's switch cameras. Okay, so here you can kind of see that design that I put in this bigger block, and then you can see the fox. So I haven't taken away from the actual fox. The fox now has this wonderful frame and linear work, which I have to say I'm absolutely loving. And I always want to give credit. I think someone who's really influenced my work with a lot of this straight line work is I love following the linear work of Frank Palmer. He does such a wonderful job. And, he's really kind of triggered my imagination with a lot of the linear work. So there we go. Let's pause there. Let me move this off to the side. Turn our lights back on. So there we have that part of today. Let me move this aside a little more so I can read any of the questions. Ta-da. Okay, do we have any, let me see, what are your feelings about using monopoly on a baby or child's quilt? If it's a wall hanging, I think it's fine. If you want to use it on their quilt, I think that that's fine. Here's the issue. So, that baby quilt, if they're actually going to use that, that's going to be washed to here and back. And, I know that the monopoly holds up. I mean, I have quilts that I've washed over 100, 150 times. But you start talking about a child or a baby quilt using that thing over and over, they get poop and pee on it, and they're going to keep washing it over and over, and puke and baby food and blah, 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 and puppy and floor. And I don't know. I would probably stick a little bit more to maybe a colored thread or a neutral thread rather than the invisible. And that's my opinion. That's kind of my guideline when I'm using the invisible thread. So that's my opinion. I could be wrong. It's probably going to hold up just fine. Like I said, I use the heck out of it and I've washed things over and over. And when I wash my quilts, I'm hot water with tons of Tide. So, and I do that so that I can test everything. So when I'm up here doing this blabbing away, I can actually give you answers because I actually do it. But that being said, baby quilts that get used a lot, I'd probably use, you know, a nice, I'm a poly person. If you want to use cotton, you can use cotton, but I'm a big poly. It just holds up forever. And especially if it's a blankie that they want to keep as a legacy piece. I know not a lot of people do that, but a lot of people now are. They're using the blankets for like a year or two, and then they're actually parents are taking those blankets and putting them away and storing them so that the children have them for later on. Okay, let me see. Appears to be a little dark. Is there any? Oh, you got that. I love that you share your skills. That's what we're all about, my dear. You are family. And I know not all of you can make it to shows. And I know that a lot of you have these monsters in your house, and you're like, now what? And I remember that feeling 20 something years ago. And there is nothing worse. And you're my family. That's what I'm here for. I will do this until I'm planted in the ground. So let me see. Is that water you are using? No, it's actually a product called Blue Line Eraser, which I love. We actually have it on our website, Quilters Apothecary. I'm sure other people carry it as well. If you have a favorite shop you like to shop at, check there. Um, I switched over to this because number one, I love it and I thought it was a great product. But for years and years and years, we used a product called So Clean that they no longer make, and it broke my heart. But thank goodness that Blue Line Eraser is there to kind of take the place. And I have had no issues with the Blue Line Eraser. It's worked wonderfully. So there we go. Blue Line Eraser. All right. Designed about 200 by 3 Ohio stars. It is very forgiving. Yeah, they are. It is. It is very forgiving. Oh, that's a great place to use that too. Okay, so hey Bev, did you stitch in the ditch around any of these blocks ahead of time? How do you determine which ones to stitch and ditch and which to not? Rich, can you switch cameras? Are we good with that? Okay, so the grid work stuff that I did here, none of this I ditched. What I did ditch around ahead of time is I ditched around this block because for me that was a picture. I ditched around this block ahead of time. Yes, I did. Because to me that was a picture. It was, and I wanted to go ahead and get that done before we actually did today's filming. I did ditch around this, and I did ditch around the fox. So I ditched around anything that was actually going to be used as a photo. Same thing here, this mountain ledge, I will be ditching around that before I go in to frame that. Same thing, you can see the schnoz of the bear here. I will be ditching around that as well. So my thing is, if this is a picture, it gets a ditch around it. And also I ditch between the body and border on both of these borders as well, because I just like doing that. It doesn't take long. It adds a lot, I think, to the quilt of integrity. So those are some of the things that I do to ditch around. Okay, hope that answered your question, Bev. Let me see. Can you tell a little bit about your whole cloth class. Absolutely. Um, so the whole cloth class, you're going to be doing a ton of different things. So in the whole cloth class, you're going to be marking a lot of things on paper because you're probably not just going to be doing one whole cloth. You're going to be marking some whole cloths on paper. You're also going to be marking out whole cloth on fabric. I'm going to make sure you're going to receive fabric to do whole cloth on. Um, and then you're going to be quilting some of these designs. Now with the whole cloth class, here's the thing, and this is what we've learned. You're going to be quilting a lot of this out, but you're going to be quilting on something like muslin on the machine. Are you actually going to be working on your whole cloth that you would be completing at home? If you want, would I? No, because why? I mean, I'm practicing. You're in a class. You're going to be doing all of the medallions. You're going to be practicing on muslin. That way, when you go home, you can actually do it on your good piece of fabric, whether it be a hand dyed, whether it be the nice piece of fabric that we're going to be supplying everybody. Um, and we're going to be working on small to medium type of whole cloths, but we're going to be hitting a lot of different things. We're going to be talking about stencils, using stencils for the whole cloth class. We're going to be talking about folding and dividing so you get a nice square quilt, and you're going to be having fun. And is it 2 or 3 days on that, Rich? It's 3. Yeah, so you're going to be doing a lot of different things because if I only had you working on one piece, and a lot of you would get so OCD that you would just suck up the time and you wouldn't get a lot of experience on a bunch of different options for that particular type of quilt. So you're going to be marking out a lot of different whole cloths on large pieces of paper. And that's why we've limited that particular class size to what, 6? Yeah, everybody has their own machine. And so there we go. So that's a little bit of information. If you want more information, just contact Rich and he'll give you whatever type of information you want to have. Okay. Um, Dina, thank you. That's very sweet. And thank you. I, I love the archetype of the teacher. I wish I would have had more when I started out. It took me a long time to get my wheels a rolling. I was very fortunate to have people like Deloa Jones, who just is absolutely fabulous. I mean, she was a wonderful mentor to me for a period of time at the beginning, and some other wonderful people. Pam Clark, who I just love, love, love. I just love, I can never say enough about Pam. I miss her so much now that she's retired. Linda Taylor, who just was absolutely phenomenal. Dawn Kavanaugh, who is just wonderful. We need more mentors. We need more people that are willing to step up, and not everything is about what buck you're going to give us. I just think that that's really important to keep our quilting community thriving. Got to keep it thriving. This business of I don't want to show it unless you're paying me. Oh, stop it. I mean, yes, you have to make a living, but let's find some balance. Let's get people quilting. I want to be the dealer. Get you going, get you a little thread, get you on that machine because then you're just going to keep doing it. And that's going to help the whole industry and it's going to keep you off the streets. Judy, let me see. I missed that about the whole cloth. Is this an online course or you're holding the class at the shop? It's actually at the shop. And we have our first one. Do we have 1 or 2 of those this year? 2. They might both be sold out, but just check on quiltersapothecary.com. Yeah. Quilters Apothecary website. See, I know that I think the one that's next month is sold out. Um, so there we go. So these are all live. All of our classes of those are going to be in the studio. Um, and we do have a full class roster. We are going to be practicing social distancing. He made me get rid of a bunch of stuff in my studio because he's a stinkerhead and for social distancing. So I had to move my fabric and everything. So everybody's going to be safe. We've got masks. We are requiring everybody to wear masks. I know that's a hard word, requiring, for those of you who think, we don't need a mask. But I got to tell you, I got to keep my community safe. And we have a lot of us that are older. I just had a couple heart attacks a few months ago, so I'm on meds that lower my immune system. So along with other things, so we're going to keep everything very safe. We've got tons of sanitizer. We've got stuff for handles of machines. So Everything is going to be completely clean, and especially with because we have people traveling from all over.
I wanted to just chime in. Uh, Somebody had asked whether we're going to be doing some of these classes online. Next year, we are going to be moving more classes online. There will be in studio classes, but there's really a lot of people calling for these classes, so we will start it. We're working that direction.
Okay, so, and I want to clarify that as well. It's a new world and it's a new industry, and I think we're going to have a lot of people who are going to choose to isolate more and stay a little more local. And so we see the industry moving more towards shopping online. We see the industry moving more towards online classes, online courses. And so that's kind of what we see our community is changing. Do I still want to go to shows? Of course, I still want to go to shows. I mean, I want to shop just as much as you. Trust me. But that being said, we do see that there's a lot of people who would really rather stay in their pajamas and take their class at their own pace. And so we have a lot of amazing things coming up, and especially this winter and next spring. So that's going to be a hot time here at Quilters Apothecary, especially for the new studio space we are adding down the road here a little bit. So, okay. Shh, I'm not supposed to talk a lot about that. Okay, so let me see.
So if you go to the FAQ section of thehoquilter.com, there are hotel suggestions.
Hmm. Absolutely. I always like the casino. Um, it's a new Holiday Inn Express. If you want cheap eats, you're what do they got? What is that? Country Inn and Suites or something like that. It's hard for us to suggest because it depends on the staff. Sometimes you get lucky and sometimes you don't, and it's just kind of what's your budget. We have a few people that stay at a couple of the hotels I wouldn't want to stay at, like the soup, some other places that I just wouldn't want to stay, but they do and they don't mind. I mean, I remember the old days when I started, I'd stay at anywhere. I mean, when I was with a machine company, they'd put me up at the Motel 6, and it was just horrible. But it was cheap, and it got me there, and it got me to class, and all that stuff. So it's kind of up to you. We also have some, what are they called? We got bed and breakfast. We have what are they, VRBO, VRBOs. So that's where you kind of rent a space and that sort of thing. Those are interesting. I've never done those myself, but we have some people that have those, and they are available, especially because we're right on the lake shore. So, and we are about 4 blocks from the lake. So there's lots of stuff to see here. Okay. Uh, Casino. You're gonna stay at the Hampton? Cool, Mary. I've heard good things about the Hampton. We love Hamptons. That's kind of our. We love the Hamptons. That's kind of our gig. We like the credits and the points. I know I miss classes at shows, but in the Saturday sessions, they are good. Thank you. We're doing the live Saturday sessions ish through the end of June because our classes start kind of mid-ish July. So, but we'll still have more tutorials coming out. They just won't be the live Saturday. So we're going to do season. So we're coming up on next few episodes will be our last of this particular season. How many have we done? 14. So it'll be about 16-ish. Um, and then, of course, as things slow down after classes, then I'll start up with the live again, especially for the winter, to keep educating. Um, Let me see. Campgrounds. Let me see. We have the lakeshore, but it's not electrified, right? So our Michigan City campground does have electric, right? But our other one that we like to stay at, which is what, about 10 miles, 15 miles, Dueling, Duneland campground. They don't have electric, but it's my favorite because it's rustic and it's nice and it's out and it's near the lake and I do like that one. That one's very cool. It's just you don't get power. And Rich struggles with that because he's an air conditioner dude. So, so there we go. Nancy Taylor, hey. Aw, that is very kind, Nancy. Thank you. It was wonderful being with you too. And Judy, love it. My Judy Garden, yep. Thank you all. Okay, well, there we go. I don't see any more questions. So, again, as I say every time, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, please know you're loved. Thank you for letting me be part of your community. And thank you for joining us at the studio for these. Be safe, take care of yourself, take care of each other. And remember, this is the time when everybody's just kind of starting to get a little bit like this, and you're just wandering around your machine rather than using it. Start getting your mojo back, because I think things will start to heat up a little bit here as summer goes and people are a little less afraid to go out and about. So we will see you next week. Love y'all.